All right, so today we're talking about the Module 4 Solve Linear Equations Guide. So you're going to use this the entire unit, and it's kind of a checklist of what you need to do next. Now, if you want to use colored pencils or highlighters, or if you have your own set of like colorful pens, please feel free to use them, or you can borrow some of mine. Totally fine with that. Okay, so the first step is parentheses, which is fancy multiplication, okay? So if you see these, you're going to distribute, which is a way to say multiply, the number in front of the parentheses, okay? So anytime you see a parentheses, the goal is to get rid of them. We don't want them, so that's where you're gonna distribute, AKA multiply. If I look at a problem and I don't see a parentheses, then I don't have to do step number 1. So this is good, no step number 1. However, if I look at this one, well, I do have a parentheses right there. So I would take this 5 and I would multiply it to the x and to that positive 2. So this is where you use that number 1 step. Step 2, we are going to combine like terms. This is a fancy way to say adding. Now, if you see any like terms, you are going to combine them, which means adds, on the same side of the equal sign only, okay? It's so important. We are only combined if it's on the same side of the equal sign. So when I say on the same side, it has to be the same side of the equal sign. So like these two guys, these are good. But if you want to do this and this, no, you can't combine those because they're on different sides of the equal sign, okay? So again, has to be on the same side of the equal sign to combine like terms. Anything else is no go. Next up is the variable on one side. If a variable is on both sides, then we are going to use addition or subtraction. I'm going to say that again. You can use addition or subtraction to move the variable pieces to the other side of the equal bar, okay? So you're taking the entire piece that's got the variable, its number, and you're moving it to the other side using addition or subtraction. No multiplication, no division, right here, okay? All right, so when I say is the variable on one side, so looking at this side of the equal sign and this side, the variable's only on the left, so this is good. We can skip number 3 because that variable piece is only on the left side, so we're good. However, in my second example here, I have a 5x on the left and I have a 7x on the right. So that is a no good. That is where we would use this step number 3, where we would have to add or subtract to move one of the variable pieces. So you can move this entire variable piece, or you could use this entire variable piece. Okay? So far, we've been able to multiply first, add, or add and subtract. Okay, next up, we have step 4, which is going to be isolate the variable, which is where we actually solve, all right? And this is where we find the variable's number, okay? Now, step 4 has 2 parts to it. First, you are going to add or subtract to move the constant. And the constant is the number that is with but not attached to the variable. And we are going to practice this after this video. Now, after you check if you have a constant to move, then you check, do I have a coefficient? So if you have a coefficient, you will multiply or divide to move the coefficient, and that's the number attached to the variable, okay? These 2 steps, this is always going to be your final step. Sometimes you might not have a constant, and sometimes you might not have a coefficient. So you gotta make sure which one you have by the end. And again, we will practice this. The final and probably the most important step is to check your work every time, okay? So what you're gonna do is you're gonna plug in the variable's number, which is what we found during step 4, right? We find the variable's number. So you're gonna plug that number into the original equation, so what we started with. It has to be the same number when you math it, okay? And when I say math it, you have to use your please excuse my dear Aunt Sally's or your calculator. And again, we're gonna go through this. This is just a checklist. Okay, we have 2 mantras. What you do on one side, you do on the other. So that's number one. I will say that so much. And then number two, do the opposite to go on the other side of the equal bar. You have to do the opposite to go on the other side of the equal bar. All right, that's the end of this video. We're going to go through some identifying of coefficients and constants together.